So, welcome everybody. We are absolutely thrilled that you are here to join us for session 2 of 3 for the pain management series. And I am Rachel Justice, for those of you who don't know me, and I run Woman to Woman along with my partner, Jillian Levinson. And we are so happy that Emma Ehrenzeller is back doing a series with us. Always a wonderful highlight, so much to learn, such a wonderful experience, and it's a great combination of both educational and experiential. So huge thank you to anyone who is joining us live. Huge thank you to everybody who is watching recorded. And I am going to be quiet and give you as much time with Emma as you possibly can get, because she's awesome. And again, just some people are just tuning in today for the first time and some don't know. So if you don't mind just briefly reintroducing yourself so people know who you are, and then the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. Happy Thursday, Friday Junior. We're almost there. It's good to see some familiar faces again, and nice to meet everyone who's new in the Zoom room today. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen for our presentation today, because if I don't have my slides, it's just a long speech, and we don't need that. So let's go ahead and jump in. So last week, we talked about how your body and brain affect your experience of pain, right? And this week, we're going to talk more about the mental and emotional side, and really some very practical tools you can use to change your mental and emotional state, and also to use that to decrease your pain. So to hone in on exactly what that's going to mean today, we're going to talk about a few different brain areas and just physiological processes related to the emotional, the mental experience of pain. Specifically, we're going to talk about your endorphins and your prefrontal cortex. We're also going to talk about tangible, clear, practical ways you can activate these different brain areas. So last week was a little bit more lesson focused about pain in the brain and the body. I highly recommend you go back to that recording whenever it's ready. This week, we're going to be more practically focused. So tangible things you can do in your day-to-day life outside of hypnosis. But with that, we will end with the group hypnotic meditation, as we always do. If you're new here this week, we'll have some time to talk about hypnosis before we actually go into it. So just know there will be space to ask and answer any questions you might have about that. And as a quick introduction for the new faces in the room today, hello, my name is Emma Ehrenzeller, and I'm very, very grateful that you've joined us today. A lot about me. Let's see. What are the highlights? I'm from North Carolina, but I'm now living in New York, in the city. My background is in public health. During the pandemic, the world was falling apart, and one thing led to another, and I got very curious about the mind-body connection. I'd always been curious about it in my public health studies. And I started working with a hypnotist. I absolutely adored it. And I said, I'm going to do this too. And from there, I started my business, really helping people hone their own mind-body connection, decrease pain, decrease anxiety, and on the whole, live happier, healthier lives. So let's go ahead and dive in to today. Oh, and one other thing, if you haven't joined for one of these, as we go through, you can always drop any questions in the chat. I'll pause and I'll answer them. I'll also pause at a few points and ask if people have any questions. So just know you can ask questions as we go through, coming off mute whenever I ask, or just dropping them in the chat as you need, okay? So let's start by talking about last week. So the main takeaway from last week, if you remember, was that your brain is what determines your experience of pain, which is a really new and unique way of thinking about it, because you might have otherwise thought, if you prick your thumb with a needle, well, it's your thumb that feels that pain, right? It just is an automatic thing. But the nervous system actually moves so fast that as that happens, some little receptors in your finger send a message to your brain and say, hey, we got something going on down here in the thumb. Do you want to do anything about it? And if the brain does, it'll send a signal of pain to that area to protect the body from harm. The purpose of pain is protection, and the brain is what decides whether or not the body needs that protection. So it's kind of a flip in how you might have thought about pain in the past. It's actually an output of your brain, right? And what's kind of wonky about it is that your brain can produce pain even if there's no injury, right? If you remember the 3 stories we talked about last week, it's a whole smorgasbord of different ways your brain can react to pain, but it's all happening in the brain. The next thing we talked about is really the goals for pain management, the 3 steps of it. And I want to recap these just because it sets the stage for what we talk about today. And it's important to keep in mind as we go through this. So the first step with pain management is always going to be working with your doctor. If you're experiencing chronic pain, if you're experiencing any kind of pain, it's important to work with your doctor, your clinicians, your physical therapist, whoever it may be, to understand what the actual damage is, right? Because then that sets the baseline for the amount of pain that perhaps is normal, and what you can and should be feeling. But once you know the actual damage there, then you can start using these tools to decrease pain in the short and long term. So we have tools like breath work, hypnosis, hypnosis, what we covered last week, to help you find more comfort and relaxation in the moment. And we also have tools that modify the mental aspects of pain that heighten pain in the long term that you'll actually be able to change and decrease the amount of pain, discomfort that you feel. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm just going to go through, I think there's some rumblings in the background. I just want to mute a few people. Okay, cool. So that's what we are going to talk about today with this pain management series. So let's jump in and start with endorphins. Now, endorphins are something that everyone has probably heard of. I feel like they are one of the most commonly discussed little molecule in your body, right? They're a very trendy thing to talk about. I'm sure we've all heard about, like, oh my gosh, exercise releases endorphins, right? But endorphins, they're really an amazing part of our body. So they're released in response to stress, in response to a happy mood. They're released in response to exercise, right? They're the body's natural mood enhancers and pain relievers, among other things. So what's also interesting about endorphins is some of the story behind them. So we've historically known about morphine for centuries on end. We've known about morphine since like the 1800s and beyond, right? You can think about the Wizard of Oz and the poppy scene, right? The opium, all of that draws back into morphine analogs. Always had this experience of euphoria, total loss of any pain sensations, right? But for a long time, we didn't know what was naturally occurring in the body that allowed us to even have a response to morphine. So to clarify what I mean by that, whenever we have any kind of drug, it's always reacting with something in the body that's already there, right? So there are these things on our cells called receptors, and the morphine was reacting with these receptors, but researchers didn't know what our bodies naturally made that fit into what morphine was working with. So there was a researcher at the NIH, her name was Candace Pert, and she really set out to find what the body's natural version of morphine was. Like, why did we even evolve to have something morphine could react to? She ended up finding endorphins. She discovered endorphins, and very simply, she named them endorphins, which is a combination of endogenous and morphine. It's the body's endogenous basically means made within the body, and then combine that with morphine. So it's just a nice, fun way to remember what endorphins are. But when we think about endorphins with pain management, really, I'm not going to go through this in depth, but they block the release of other little molecules that signal pain. So when endorphins are around, it says, no, we're not doing the whole pain release thing. We're not going to send any messages about pain right now. We're feeling good. We are not focused on that, right? So when the endorphins are released, they say, no more. We don't need any of this pain to be released. So when it comes to pain management, the goal isn't just, okay, exercise every day and release endorphins. The goal is actually to find what are the things that bring you that sense of joy. Because endorphins are one of these molecules in your body that help signal joy, positive mood, happiness, and whatnot. So the goal is actually to find the things that make you happy and to do them in a regular fashion, right? To do them daily, to do them weekly, so that you always have a base level of endorphins in your system. So here are a few things you can do to activate your natural endorphin system. The first is, as we've discussed, it's the mildly aerobic exercise. So this could be going for a brisk walk. This could be doing a Zumba class online. But I also, exercise isn't always going to be accessible depending on what kind of pain you're experiencing, where you're at in your cancer journey, right? So we want to be able to identify what are the other things that can release endorphins as well. So we have some other ones. There's also acupuncture has been shown to release more endorphins. If you prefer that mode of, or that's a very historic cultural way to release endorphins and to connect to this mind-body connection. As we often talk about, there's also meditation and breath work. But what I want to talk about with meditation, and we probably touched on this in one of the 10 sessions I've done before, is this doesn't mean you have to sit in silence, on some fancy floor pillow for 10 minutes at a time. Meditation can be a lot of different things. You can opt for a hypnosis recording if that's something you really enjoy. You can go for a peaceful walk outside in the park if that brings you a sense of peace. Maybe for you, you like painting, you like doodling. Those end up being more meditative for you. Whatever it may be, find what gets you into that place of kind of peacefulness, of contentment, of calm. That gets to be your form of meditation. Whenever I teach meditation, I want to really highlight that because I think a lot of us are introduced to it as if it just has to be sitting in silence for 10 minutes, but really it can be so many different things. And it's about finding what works for you. Breath work is another one here. We're actually going to cover breath work more in depth next week. And then when we get to these next 3 bullets, it really distills into this theme that's so simple. And it's really just, what are the things that make you happy, right? So things like laughter, that releases your endorphins, social connection, FaceTiming a friend, FaceTiming a family member, feeling the support around you is also going to release some of these endorphins. Time spent outside in the sunshine has been shown to release endorphins in the skin, and even things as simple as listening to your favorite music. Now, this is almost painfully simple, right? To just say, okay, do the things that make you happy. But for a lot of us, especially when we get stressed with work, with kids, with family, with holidays coming up, we start to put the things that make us happy to the wayside. But in reality, especially when we're thinking about pain management, one of the first recommendations really is, how can we start prioritizing the things that make you happy? We're actually going to talk about a study in a little bit that incorporated this into their pain management protocol. So I am curious if anyone would like to share. You can drop it in the chat. You can come off mute and share. But what are some of the things that bring you little sparks of joy that you think you could do better to bring into your day-to-day life? If anyone wants to share. You don't have to. I'll say I feel like I need to read a little more. I love reading fiction, but since I started my graduate courses again, I have been really putting that to the wayside. But that's just something to be thinking about. Okay, what are the things that make me feel relaxed and happy? Because, we have some things in the chat. Walking in Central Park. Love that, Samantha. I also love walking in Central Park. I recently walked through, I think it's called the Ramble recently. And that area I love because doesn't even feel like you're in the city anymore. Janet said going to comedy shows. Absolutely. So fun. Listening to gospel music. Beautiful. Right. And so these get to be things that you weave into your regular routine, whether it's daily, whether it's weekly. But, the goal is, yes, let's be happy. Where is that at? I think it's called the Ramble. If someone else knows better than me, you can correct me, but I think it's really just kind of plopped in the middle of Central Park. But it does feel like you're hiking through a park rather than just hiking through the city. And I really, really love it. I really recommend. The goal here, of course, is to be happy, right? We want to be happy, but it's also because endorphins boost your happiness. Yes. They also are these natural pain relievers. So happiness is kind of a hack to also relieving pain. When you can release your endorphins, yes, your mood will improve, but you'll also decrease the pain. So it's one of these little shortcuts you can take. So you want to find what these things are for you and how you can start doing them regularly. So your body has more of a natural, regular flow of endorphins through your system. So let's move on. Does anyone have any questions there before I move on to the next part? Cool. Let's talk a bit about your prefrontal cortex now and how we can use this part of the brain to help you feel less pain, less discomfort, less anxiety. So if you've ever heard that saying that, or not even a saying, but that little pop psychology fact that our brains don't stop developing until we're 25. We don't have a fully developed brain until we're 25. That's kind of true. I mean, that is where, they believe that the brain reaches maturation. But just so you know, your brain is always growing. It's always developing. It's always making new connections. as long as you live. So your brain, in a sense, is always developing, but yes, it reaches maturation at 25. And specifically, the part that they're talking about that takes the longest to mature is this prefrontal cortex. So whenever you're thinking, when I asked you that question a few minutes ago about what are the things that make you happy, your prefrontal cortex probably went online and said, okay, what are the things? Let me think about it. Let me solve this problem. Let me answer this question. It's our critical thinking, it's our logic, it's our attention, our awareness, so many different things. It's essentially the seat of our consciousness. It's how we think. It's our thinking brain, right? The part that chitter chatters day in and day out. The PFC, as we call it, is really important because it controls our thoughts, and the way that we think about pain can actually change our experience of pain. So there's a specific type of therapy that many of you may be familiar with. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy. And this type of therapy essentially is focused on changing your thoughts and your actions because it believes when you do this, you can change your experience. It believes that the root of your experiences isn't what's happening on the outside. It's actually the way that you're perceiving what you're going through. Right? So it believes that when you change your thoughts, you can also change your experience. Now, I am not a CBT therapist. I'm a certified hypnotist. But what we're going to be doing today is pulling out some specific techniques and tools that you can do on your own time, that it's encouraged that you do on your own time from CBT. If you find that you really like them, or you find that you're wanting more support in working through them, that's a great time to find a CBT therapist in your area. And there are some that specifically focus on pain management. So let's talk a little bit about how CBT connects to this PFC area we talked about. So actually last year in one of my graduate courses, a group of students did a project on how CBT actually changed the brain, like physically led to changes happening across the brain. I thought that was so interesting because I love therapy. I've been in it before. I've done similar things, but I hadn't really realized that it could physically change our brains. The way that we change our thoughts can physically change our brains. And that's exactly what this research article showed. So to do this experiment, a group of researchers got about 30 people. Let's say about 15 of them experienced chronic pain, different types of chronic pain. They were one group. And then we had a control group. They didn't experience any pain. They didn't have any kind of chronic pain. Both groups went through an 11-week CBT experience where they were getting weekly CBT therapy, they were doing weekly exercises related to CBT, etc. At the end of the 11 weeks, they found that both groups experienced, or they saw in their brains, that there was an increase in gray matter. Now, you don't really need to know what exactly that all means, but in our brain, we have gray matter and white matter. When we have more gray matter, that's a good thing. We see a breakdown in gray matter with diseases like Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, depression, and things like that. So more gray matter is a good thing. It means better communication, better cognitive abilities. So they saw increased gray matter in a variety of areas related to pain, especially in this prefrontal cortex area. And they also saw, interestingly, reductions in gray matter in other areas, like these kind of somatosensory areas that are all about, perception, particularly perception of pain, the physical aspects of pain, rather than the mental aspects that might be more in this prefrontal area. So they saw these physical changes, but behaviorally, what did they see different? Well, they saw that the people experiencing pain had a lot less pain catastrophizing. So a lot less negative thought spirals about their pain, a lot less anxiety about the pain that they experienced, even if it was chronic. Additionally, in this and in other literature about CBT, like we talked about a little bit last week, they also felt less pain. The pain intensity was decreased. So the researchers in this study hypothesized, they believe that what they were seeing with these, structural changes in these different brain areas, believe that the denser gray matter in the front of the brain in this prefrontal cortex meant that the participants were able to exert more control over their pain. Because they were changing their thoughts, they were changing their perception of pain, both in the emotional and the mental way, but also in their physical sensations. The decrease in the gray matter here, they believed, allowed this front kind of thinking control center with the prefrontal cortex to exert more control over the physical pain processing so that they felt less pain over time. So I know that's a lot. There's a lot of information on this slide. Does anyone have any questions there?
Yeah, I
Awesome.
actually was wondering, so in terms of the, from CBT, I know there's a lot of different types of CBT. Do you know what was involved at all actually in
Yeah.
what they did?
So we'll pull out. I'm so glad you asked that because that loops us back. We're going to talk about a few of the techniques that are commonly used, especially with pain management. In this particular study, it was actually pretty interesting because they focused on CBT. They said in the article, the title was, let me see, CBT increases gray matter, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look into it, the actual program they used also included things like progressive muscle relaxation and visualization and mental imagery, which in research, when they say that, it's not technically hypnosis, but those are the different things of hypnosis that you put together. If you put those together in a soup, you get hypnosis. So it was a mix of CBT techniques, but it was also buffered by some of these other techniques that we're also going through in this series. But it is interesting that they focus it especially on CBT. Oh, and that also brings me to, like I said earlier with the endorphins point, the people in the study were also doing things daily that they loved. They were creating a whole practice around what are the things that make me happy? How can I do those regularly? So that was also incorporated into this study, which is why I really wanted to emphasize that in the beginning. So, any other questions there? Cool. All right. So, how can we actually use this? What does this look like? What could this mean for you? First, I want you to start getting curious about your thoughts. We start with the thoughts. This is really just a two-step process. First step is tracking your thoughts about pain, right? When you have a chronic pain flare up, or when you're getting ready for a procedure, when you're healing from a procedure, when you just have an achy back one day for no reason. Start to notice, how do you think about your pain? What are the thoughts that float through your mind? You can track these in a little journal. You can keep them in your notes app, whatever works for you. Then I want you to start questioning them, right? A lot of this inner work and a lot of pain management specifically is asking yourself, do I need to accept these thoughts at face value? That's how we use this highly evolved thinking brain, right? It's for critical thinking, right? Let's think critically about these negative thoughts. Are they really true? And if not, what can I tell myself instead that is maybe a little more empowering, makes me feel a little more in control and less, I guess, pulled by the tides of my pain? So the first step is getting curious about your thoughts and questioning them. Then we move into actions. So if every time you experience a flare up, you do the same kind of action and it doesn't really work for you, or maybe it's helpful, but you want to see what could be more effective, the next step is choosing a different action, right? And that's kind of the purpose of this whole series, is to equip you with a whole tool belt of different actions you can do, of different things you can try to help manage your pain. Not everything works the same for everyone, right? Some people love a silent meditation. Some people love breath work. Other people don't care for that as much, but they prefer hypnosis or they prefer a walk outside in the park, right? It's all about finding what works for you. So really it becomes like you are your own experiment, right? Once you know the baseline level of pain with your doctors and your providers, it's about getting curious and what could be more helpful for you, right? And continue experimenting, knocking off the ones that don't really work for you, and then continuing to practice things that feel like they're promising and are helpful for you. So let's go through an example of what this would actually look like, because I think, giving you action items is fine, but I think examples can really hone it in a much deeper way. So let's take Susan, for example. If someone in this group today is named Susan, this is not about you, but maybe it could be. I don't know. But this is just an example we wrote out. But Susan, let's say a few years ago, had to get an operation for cancer. She's now cancer free. But ever since she got that operation, that procedure done, for the past 2.5 years, she's been having chronic pain. And, she worked on it with her doctor for a few months and she can kind of manage it, but it still kind of feels like it controls her life. And so whenever she has a flare up of this chronic pain, she hears herself having thoughts like, my pain controls me, not this again, and there's nothing I can do about it, right? Things like that kind of start on these ruminating spirals, feel really defeating and really powerless, and just don't feel great for Susan. So let's say Susan comes to this workshop, she watches a recording, or she just learns about using CBT for pain management. She starts with her thoughts. She says, okay, how can I change my thoughts and maybe change my pain? So Susan's going to use something called thought ladders. In the section about thoughts, there's this question of what can I tell myself instead? So she's clear, like, okay, these are the general thoughts I think day in and day out. Maybe they're not totally true. Her pain doesn't control her entire life. It's not nothing they can do about it. But when we have negative thoughts, the goal isn't necessarily to go from a negative thought to a positive thought. I told Susan, you need to tell yourself, I am in complete control of my pain, after she has experienced chronic, unenjoyable pain for 2.5 years. Is that really going to be empowering? No. She could tell herself, I'm in complete control of my pain until the cows come home, but likely it's just going to honestly feel like a bunch of BS. She's not really going to believe it. So what we want to do is move from a negative thought to a neutral thought, climb up the thought ladder. So in Susan's example, a neutral thought might be something like, there are things I can do to manage my pain. As simple as that. It's a fact. There are things she can do to manage her pain. Doesn't mean she's in complete control of her pain 24/7, but it's tempering that kind of negative bias with something factual, with something logical that's in the middle. And maybe if she feels really good about that in a few months and she wants to move to a positive thought of I'm in control of my pain, she can, but really we'll want to get you in more of a neutral place. Getting to a positive place isn't completely necessary. So she uses these different thought ladders whenever she has these negative thoughts to get out of the negative thought spiral. And then she also tries new things. Maybe she too loves to go on walks in Central Park. So when she's feeling good in the mornings, she goes for a nice walk through the Ramble, as we've been talking about. And if it's not called the Ramble, I'll be so embarrassed at the end of this, but I really think it is. She goes through nice walks through Central Park, takes 15 to 20 minutes every day to do something that she loves. Maybe she tries doing hypnosis when she's in a flare up to help release some of that discomfort. At the end of 6 months of retraining her thoughts and giving herself new tools in her tool belt to try when she feels pain, it's not that the pain is fully gone, it never comes up, but it's managed. She now feels in the driver's seat. She now feels in control. That's ultimately the goal we want to feel in CBT and with all of this work that we're doing through these series and generally. Putting you back in the driver's seat so that you feel like you have agency over your own body and that there are things that you can actively do to feel better. So that is Susan's pain. I do have another section for today, but I feel like we've covered a lot of different action items. So I'm actually going to breeze over that and we're going to get ready to transition into hypnosis in a bit. But the main takeaway from here is to become your own experiment. Get curious about your thoughts, start questioning them, asking if they're true, choosing something neutral or positive instead. And then get curious about what works for you, right? If you've been to my other sessions, you know that I often create kind of like a summary document where you can access different resources and just be reminded of the tools we talk about. I am going to create one of those for this session as well, where I'll list out all of these different things that we talk about. And that kind of becomes your toolbox where you get to experiment with something new, right? So start getting curious and trying new pathways and new ways to change. So before we move on, I want to pause. Does anyone have any questions on that? From endorphins to your big prefrontal cortex and CBT? Any questions at all? Okay. I was originally going to do a third section today on the subconscious, but I don't want to overwhelm with like a million different things to do. So that'll weave in really beautifully with next week. We're going to save that for next week's session. So to sum up for today, start prioritizing the activities that make you happy, activate your endorphins. And I didn't include this in here, but the PAG is called the periaqueductal gray matter. It's such an unnecessarily fancy word, but it has a ton of endorphin receptors. And whenever we release endorphins in our body, that area is going to be really lit up. And when they've activated it, like electrically stimulated it in rats and in monkeys, it's led to total analgesia, no sensations of pain. So we want to get the endorphin network working, the PHU working. I also want you to begin tracking your thoughts and trying new things. Use your newly evolved PFC. So those are our main takeaways from today. And now let's pause a little bit and talk about hypnosis. I think we have a number of new folks in the group today. So I do want to take a moment to talk about hypnosis before we shift into it. If you're not familiar, hypnosis in the way you would do it, in a group session like this with another hypnotist, clinical hypnotherapist, really it's like a deep guided meditation with an outcome attached. For today's session, we're focusing on helping you feel more empowered, more in charge of your body, more in charge of your mental state and your thoughts. But it can be used for so many different things. Last week, we focused more directly on pain management. That, of course, will be woven into today as well. But I do want to pause here. Does anyone have any questions about hypnosis or things you've heard about hypnosis in the past that you're like, what does this mean? I need to know more. Please let me know, because there's a lot of different myths out there, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. You can also come off mute if you'd like.
Hi, so
Hey.
this is Samantha. This is my first time at this session.
Welcome.
Thank you. So when I saw that you would be doing hypnosis, I mean, for me, I don't know. I think, what I've seen on television and, not really being familiar with hypnosis. I think I was thinking, how will I feel after when this is over? What are the side effects of the hypnosis once the class is finished? We see stuff on TV, misconceptions about what hypnosis is. Oh, I'm going to be under some trance after. So I try to get you to dispel that so I can comfortably participate in the hypnosis part of the class.
Absolutely. And I so appreciate you bringing that up, Samantha, because could tell we had some familiar faces. I didn't know if it was first timers or not. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And that's so important because there are so many misconceptions that are popularized out there about hypnosis. So first, I'll share a bit about what it's going to look like today, right? What is hypnosis actually going to be? Really, as the other folks in here who have come to some of the other ones can, I'm sure, affirm and speak to their own experience, it's a lot of visualization. So in the beginning, we're going to do some things to relax your different muscle groups. You'll be visualizing different peaceful, calming kind of scenes. It's a lot of visualization and specific relaxation techniques. And for today's session, we're actually going to be doing a lot of what I call future visualization, which sometimes in research they call mental practice, where you'll be visualizing a version of yourself in the future who has a different relationship to pain, where your brain, your subconscious mind, basically gets to see and feel what it would be like to be this version of you who has a more positive or neutral relationship to their pain. So that's what it actually looks like. Afterwards, you're just going to feel really relaxed, right? Some people, generally you'll be awake and aware, right? But you'll feel more relaxed. You'll feel in a better mood. That's almost always the takeaway. And to dispel some of the common myths out there, for instance, you mentioned the one of like being in a trance, and what does that mean? When you're in hypnosis, you are completely awake and aware the entire time. So you will be more relaxed, yes, but your conscious mind is still there. I know for a lot of my clients, when they go in for the first time, and when I went into hypnosis for the first time, I was surprised because I was like, okay, I feel so relaxed, but I still have like thoughts creeping in here and there. Like I'll have a thought flit by as I would any other time of day, right? You're still awake, you're still aware, you just feel much more relaxed. Some other ones, let me think. Hypnosis isn't anything you can get stuck in. So even if your computer was to shut down in the middle of the session, right? And you didn't fully end the hypnosis session, you would either just open your eyes and be like, oh, I don't know why I don't hear Emma's voice anymore or what's going on. Like, okay, but you would be in a normal state of awareness, like you are any other time of day, like right now. Or you just go into a comfortable sleep if you're really relaxed. You might just fall into a normal nap and then wake up like normal. Um, so yeah, that's what's really interesting about hypnosis is it actually is quite a normal and natural state. It's like a meditation, but deeper.
Thank you.
In
I
your
appreciate
comfortable
that.
time. Yeah. Any other questions, Samantha or anyone? I really appreciate you asking that. All
No,
righty.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. Um, well, sounds great. Well, like I mentioned today, so this is actually my 10th session with Woman to Woman. So thank you for having me here 10 times. Means the world. Today, what we're going to do is a little bit different than our normal hypnosis. So it's still going to be as relaxing as ever. It's going to be a little bit more self-guided than normal with the visualization. So that just means I'm going to prompt you to visualize something. If something doesn't come to mind instantly, that's okay. Just continue listening to the sound of my voice, continue noticing the relaxation in your body. All of that is totally normal. Just go about it. This type of visualization, a lot of people really like, but because it's our 10th session, it's a little more advanced, but I think you all are really going to love it. Okay. So just to cover a few things before we begin, especially for the new folks. To be clear, hypnosis is not a substitute for any kind of medical attention or psychiatric illnesses. This is not, especially when it comes to pain, continue working with your doctors, continue working with your clinicians, whoever they may be. This is not a substitute for any of those kinds of things. And at the end, it really just says, as part of this process, you'll be guided through relaxation techniques, imagery, visualization, stress reduction processes, all of these kinds of things. Like I mentioned, just a lot of visualization, relaxing your body, and visualizing some more. So, yeah. Any questions before we get started? Okay. Feel free to drop them in the chat as well. You can also send them directly to me in the chat and I will answer them. So, a few things before we get started. I always call this my hypnosis monologue. Go ahead and start getting into a comfortable position. As always, I recommend that you're seated in a chair. It's best if you can relax your head and your neck on maybe a wall behind you or on your chair. If you just have to keep your neck up straight, that's also fine. I just like you to get as relaxed as possible. As we go through, know that you are in complete control and your mind gets to see whatever it would like. So, for instance, if I tell you to see the mountains and you're like, no, actually, I want to go to the beach in my mind, go to the beach. This is your session, and this stands for this, or if you ever use the recordings in the future as well. In addition, let's see if you need to move around during the session, if you need to scratch your nose, all of that is completely okay. It's not going to magically take you out of hypnosis. It's all about you getting as relaxed as possible. And finally, a few things you might experience during the session. Some people feel a sense of heaviness in their body, almost like they're melting into relaxation. Other people feel a sense of lightness, like they're floating. All of that is completely normal. Occasionally, some people's eyelids will flutter. And one kind of funky one, sometimes people get excess salivation in their mouth. This is one that always happens to me. All of these are totally normal and just part of being in hypnosis. So that's my little hypnosis monologue. I'm going to stop sharing now as we get ready. Any final questions before we begin? Great. And what I will say is today we will finish the hypnosis before 1:00. So just know we're not going to go over. That's why I didn't want to go into that third piece of the lecture. I was like, you know what? I'll keep it before 1 for once. All righty. So if there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and get started. So to begin, you guys can go ahead and get comfortable. Whenever you're ready, just take your time. Go ahead and close your eyes. Good. And we'll just start by taking a few deep breaths. To begin on your next inhale, just inhale for the count of 4. Hold it at the top for 2 and exhale for 6. Good. And again, inhale for 4 Hold for 2. And exhale for 6. Good. And one last time. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. And exhale for 6. Good. Good. You can allow your breathing to return to a normal, natural rhythm. Or if you'd like, you can continue breathing in this pattern, whatever you prefer. We're about to embark on a co-creative journey using your vivid imagination. All you have to do is follow the sound of my voice, the creative images created by your subconscious mind. So to begin, I'd like you to just notice the feeling of your heartbeat. If you'd like, you can place a hand on your heart just to feel it for a moment, or just notice the soft pulsing through your body. Just notice this feeling in your chest. Notice what your heartbeat makes you think of, what your heart space makes you feel. This energy is the energy of your vitality, of your love, of your healing. If your heart space, if your heartbeat had a color, what would that color be? Just take a moment to visualize. Take a moment to visualize here your heart space being this color, a glowing ball of energy in the middle of your chest. Represents this energy of healing, of vitality. It's almost like with every heartbeat, you feel yourself becoming more and more relaxed. You're safe in this place right now. No one needs anything from you. You're free to be calm, free to take this time to you. And we'll just start by sending this energy of your heart space to different areas of your body. So to begin, you see this heart space energy, whatever vibrant color it is, at the crown of your head. Just moves down the crown of your head. As it does, you relax your eyebrows, you relax your eyelids, relax your cheeks, your jaw. You feel all the micro muscles in your face totally and completely relax. This calming sensation just moves down your neck. So you relax your throat and any neck muscles. This continues and moves down your shoulders, moving from your upper arms to your elbows, relaxing your forearm, all the way down to your wrists. Maybe for a moment, you even visualize and feel this heart space energy, whatever color it is to you, just pool in the palms of your hands before it extends out past the tips of your fingers. Good. With each beat of your heart, you find yourself becoming more and more relaxed. You feel this heart space energy just fill your chest, relax any muscles here. Moves down to your abdomen. So you relax any stomach muscles. You feel your internal organs relaxing. Your whole upper body feels totally, completely relaxed. Good. And you now feel this relaxation just move down your legs, from your thighs to your knees, to your calves, all the way out to the bottoms of your feet. Maybe it's even like any remaining tension, negativity, or stress is just flowing out the bottoms of your feet, being absorbed by the earth beneath you. You feel so good, so relaxed in this space. Good. Next, I'd like you to just see, maybe even feel yourself floating in a vast sea of this glowing heart space energy, just like you're floating comfortably through this gentle energy of love and healing, whatever color it is to you. You feel relaxed, you feel tranquil, connected to yourself and the energy around you. As you're in this space, you just feel so good, so calm, and so at peace. In a few moments, I'm going to count from 10 to 1. With each count, you'll find yourself becoming more and more relaxed. By the time I reach 1, you'll feel totally and completely relaxed, ready to go through our session today. So 10, just feeling the gentle healing light, noticing what color and what brightness it is. 9, releasing any stresses, any fears into this light. You trust that everything will be fine. 8, allowing this light to spread its warmth to every tissue, every cell, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. 7, feeling so good, so relaxed, so at peace. 6, 5, feeling more relaxed and comfortable now as you allow the healing light to cleanse and restore health and comfort to your body. 4, 3, feeling rejuvenated and calm all the way down to 2 and 1, feeling so totally and completely relaxed. Good, good. You're now so totally and completely relaxed that your subconscious mind is open and receptive to new changes about your thoughts, your thinking patterns, your behaviors, and your body. To teach your subconscious this lesson, you'll experience a vision of your future self here in the safety of hypnosis today. So, emerging from this bright, radiant, healing light of your heart space, you begin to see a vision of your future self. Maybe this is yourself in 6 months, maybe a year from now. And as they emerge, you notice that this is a version of you who feels in control and empowered in their body. This version of you knows that pain may come and go, but it doesn't have to control you, your emotions, or your anxiety. They have a natural state of wholeness and good health, feeling whole, healthy, and well. You just take a moment to notice the details of this future self. You might see, what are they wearing? How do they carry themselves? What is their energy like? Good. Maybe you even take a moment to embrace this future self, perhaps talk with them. This version of you is here to provide guidance and support, leading you towards a life where you feel like you have agency and control in your body and in your health. So you just take a few moments to embrace and connect with this future self now, however you need. Good, good. This future self is here today to walk you through a visualization of what your life will look and feel like with new empowering thoughts, beliefs, and actions around your body and any pain you may feel. You might see this visualization in first person through the eyes of your future self, or you might see it zoomed out, almost like you're watching a TV show. Either is completely okay. Just notice how you feel as you move through these different scenes. So first, you see your future self going about a normal day. Perhaps they're at work or doing various things at home. As you go through the day, you notice that perhaps a negative thought flows through your mind. But the response of this future self, of you, is different. You allow the thought to just float away. Maybe it's almost like you see it like a blip on a screen. It comes, but it immediately goes. You are in control of your thoughts. You have a sense of calm relaxation about you. You know negative thoughts about your body, health, or pain aren't helpful. They don't serve a purpose. You just notice what it feels like to go through your day, noticing your negative thoughts, but not letting them control you. Just take a moment to visualize this now. Good. You just notice how you feel as you do. You trust yourself to allow any thoughts to just pass by. You realize you can control your thoughts. Because of that, you can exert more control over your body. Good. And next, you see yourself doing something related to your body that in the past has brought you stress or anxiety. Maybe it's a doctor's appointment, maybe it's a new scan or test. Just take a brief moment to bring to mind what that might be for you. Good. You begin to visualize yourself in this situation, but you notice it's different. You feel completely calm and confident as you go into this event. Your heart is beating at a normal, steady rhythm. Your mental energy feels clear. And going into this event is like anything else in life. It's as normal as dropping a book off at the library or making your coffee or tea in the morning. You notice the details of this event, who's around you, where you are, who you're meeting with, whatever it may be. And you notice how empowering it feels to go into this event feeling totally calm and neutral. So you just take some time to visualize this scenario now, feeling completely calm and steady, noticing the emotions and sensations that come up as you do. Good, good. And lastly, you see your future self connecting with your loved ones. Maybe you see them all at a dinner celebrating you. Maybe you're at the park. Maybe you're at a family holiday with them. As you connect with them, you just feel their immense support and love for you on your journey. Being with them makes you happy. You feel safe and calm around them, able to open up about whatever you may need. Maybe you also see yourself prioritizing what makes you happy, whether it's painting, walking outside, listening to your favorite music. Your heart feels light, life is happy, and you're surrounded by 100 points of love. Just take some time to visualize yourself happy and supported now, noticing how you feel when you do so. Good, good. Just take a few moments here. You can visualize anything else you want to practice in your mind's eye here today. Good, good. And in the future, you can always come back to this calming place of hypnosis to visualize having more control over your thoughts, to feel yourself going into stressful situations, feeling totally calm, or connecting with your loved ones. But you now find yourself again immersed in this glowing light, connecting with your future self. You realize that you are now focusing your mind on neutral and positive thoughts. You feel and experience a new, healthy you, mentally and physically. Healthy energy flows into you as you direct your mind to improve your health and increase your energy levels. Because you're becoming so much calmer and more relaxed than ever before, your outlook on life is improving. You begin to take each day as it comes. You feel a deep sense of acceptance, of peace and serenity deep within you. Your breathing becomes more natural as you go through the day, and your heart rate continues at a steady pace. Your whole body feels like it's working in peace and harmony. Good. And you find that in every way and in every day, you are getting better and better. You feel healthy. You feel mentally energetic and calm. All of these positive qualities only increase as each day passes. Good. So in a few moments, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. The count of 5, you'll open your eyes, feeling completely awake, rejuvenated, and refreshed. So 1, just beginning to tune into your body. 2, beginning to wiggle your fingers and your toes. 3, eyelids just fluttering. 4, swaying slightly side to side. And 5, opening your eyes, feeling totally awake, refreshed, and rejuvenated. All righty. Take your time coming back. We're ending at 1:01, so I apologize for the 1-minute tardiness on my end. But go ahead and take your time coming back. I know some people had to hop off at the 1 o'clock mark. But when you're ready, I'd love to hear if anyone wants to share what you felt during that. You might have noticed that one was a little bit different. It was a lot more led by you. And I specifically wanted to do that because we've done a lot of different stuff in our different recordings and wanted to leave this as another option for you. Yeah. Janet, I see your hand is raised.
Yes. I was a little hyper when I started this whole thing because I had 2 cups of coffee today. So I just felt my heart rate going down and just relaxing, totally
Mhm.
relaxing. And everything in my whole body was like tingling from the
Mm,
energy, I guess. It was
yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Much
absolutely.
needed. Yeah.
Good. I'm
Thank
so glad to
you.
hear that. I'm so glad to hear that, Janet. Yeah, when we think about like the physical sensations that can happen in hypnosis, it's the heaviness, it's the lightness. For some people, it can also be numbness or tingling. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's also on the Rolodex of different things you can feel. See?
Thanks.
Awesome. Anyone else? No pressure.
For me, I think it was interesting that when I saw myself, it was like me hiding in bushes watching some other version of myself. It wasn't me like
Mm-hmm.
watching the life I was living. So that was interesting. And the color that I saw when you said like envision your heart wrapped in a color was actually the color of the slide you have up right now, ironically.
Oh, fun.
It's
Huh.
it's a great color. Exactly.
A nice little common color, right? Yeah. Well, I
Exactly.
love that. Thank you for sharing, Anne. And yeah, I always like to include that kind of point I say in there about you might see it like through the eyes of your future self, or you might kind of watch it like a TV show. Because I know for me, I don't see myself hiding in the bushes, but I do also see it kind of more like a TV show. Like I'm watching them do stuff rather than like me in first person. So yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Thanks.
Of course.
I actually had a little bit more trouble concentrating on this one. I was muted, so you couldn't hear, but I'm at the hospital. There are really, really loud sirens that were going off. And I feel like the more minor noises, the horns and, people and stuff I can tune out, but there were a few very prolonged sirens. And I was so frustrated because I was
Yeah,
really like struggling and it sort of took me out of the deep part and kept sort of bringing me back up to the surface, and I kept trying
right.
to go back down. If it was just one, it probably would have been okay, but it happened about 3 times. And so that was frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that does get frustrating. I know even from my end, I have to stay very attentive when I'm running these sessions, and it's New York. There's always a million things going on outside. So I definitely know that feeling of like, all right, I'm just trying to get in the zone, but there's a lot going on. And sometimes I actually think that that can be helpful. I know Samantha earlier, she had to leave for a meeting, but kind of this question of like, am I going to be in a trance? Am I going to be conscious? Even though that can be frustrating when it happens, I think sometimes it can be a helpful reminder of like, all right, I am in control. Like if today isn't the day for me to get into this relaxed state, I can come back to it another day when there aren't a million sirens going off and my attention isn't being directed a ton of different places. But it's a healthy reminder that, you also are conscious, and it gets to be, what's going to make the most sense. Is it going to be to dive into this today when there's a bunch going on in the background that's really audibly distracting, or to come back to it at a later time when you are in a better place for it? So yeah.
I definitely want to come back to it because I thought it was really interesting, and I was there, and then it just kind of, like I said, it's that feeling of sort of almost like bubbling up to the surface, where you're really, really kind of, tuning everything out, and I was, oh no, I don't want to hear that.
I know, you're like, take me back to my relaxed place. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, great. And just know, if you ever, we have, or Sherry, did you just come off mute? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I create this thing in my mind where I go into like disbelief. So like, oh, just another thing that won't work.
Yeah.
This talk, it's the talk that I'm trying to get rid of. And it doesn't want to go away.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think first, acknowledging and admitting that to yourself is really powerful, because half the time when we're stuck in cycles like that of like, nothing will work for me, I'm the one fluke, it'll be everyone else but not me, we don't even realize that we're in that mental cycle. And so I do want to really acknowledge you for noticing that and bringing that forward. And, I also want to share the sentiment that I brought up earlier of, we are really all on our own journeys, and there's nothing wrong or different about you just because something didn't work for you the same way it did for someone else. It really is unique to everyone. And at the same time, I know that can be really, really frustrating. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what I might recommend, Sherry, is when you do feel like you have the time, is, kind of getting curious of, because it sounds, I know when we get to that point of like, nothing will work for me, it's also like, I feel like I've already tried it all, right? It kind of comes from the evidence of like, well, I've tried everything, nothing will work for me. So I think kind of going back to some of what we talked about today is just considering, what are the things that I've tried? What was kind of helpful that maybe I could do more of? What really wasn't helpful and I don't want to try? If hypnosis is one of those things that's not helpful for you, that's okay too. It's not going to be for everybody. Nothing really is. But I would also, love to help guide you to things that, even if they aren't a total 180 change, at least move the needle slightly. But I know it's a frustrating experience. But yeah. Thank you for sharing, Sherry. That's tough. Awesome. All righty. Well, we'll go ahead and close out for today. Okay. Sum up, we have some new tools in your toolbox to change your mental and physical experience of pain. And also an experience in hypnosis that you can use to continue changing the cognitive sides of pain. As a reminder too, today's hypnosis was a little more unique. Some people really like a more directly guided, you see this, now you see this, you see this. This was a lot more unique, and it was like, here's a general prompt, see whatever your mind brings to you. So some people love that. For other people, it's not really their jam. But because we've done so many sessions together, I wanted to add it to the recordings you have to diversify for the folks who might like it. So yeah, so that's today. As always, our last session is going to be next Thursday at 12. We are going to go over a variety of other pain management strategies and different things you can do and try. If you have any questions about today, if you want to connect with me about anything that we talked about, my email is here, hello@authenticityremastered.com. And this is my website if you want to just click an email link there. So yeah, that's everything for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Emma. This was
Thank
wonderful. And, thank you for mixing it up. It does not get old, even though we know you've done 10 sessions before. Each one feels interesting and relevant, and such a great combination of kind of showing you how to take the topic and what we learned in the beginning of the session, and then kind of apply it through the hypnosis session. So it was wonderful. I hope you all return next week. And thank you for everything, and have a wonderful day and week, and look forward to our last session next week.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.